I'm just waiting for somebody to answer my question rather than equivocate. So, do you go from 7 to half 7? All right, so there are days when you don't do that. And, I mean, how much time do you need to get better? I mean, I know that the gym access is tougher, but there's so much stuff you can do without the gym. You know, some of you who struggle with the left-handed dribbling or the weak-handed dribbling, whichever your weak hand is, I mean, that's kind of anywhere you want to go. You can buy an 8-pound plastic basketball and dribble around campus. Problem solved. Because it's on gravel. I've seen some of your roads here, it's shit, so that's great. Because that means you've really got to control the ball. Dribbling, sorted, done. So if you take that time, that's 15 minutes of dribbling practice you don't need to do in here. So you've done that. So now you can just work on this. And if there's a basket somewhere else, or if you've got access to a basket in here, that's another 8 minutes you don't have to do the close right basket stuff. So that's done. So I just think time is a bad excuse. You know, I studied for my doctorate while I was playing in the NBA, so it's just not that. I mean, getting a doctorate is not that hard, but if you can do it while playing in the NBA, it's really not that hard. Anybody, it's just a question of, am I willing to not have the fun stuff as well? I didn't drink in college until my senior year, and even then it wasn't very much. When I played in the league, I ate the same lunch for 13 years. So, you know, think about it. I recognize that in college you're kind of spoiled, but you go back to playing in the league, and all of a sudden then it's not somebody cooking for you unless you've got a chef or whatever, which most players don't.
Do they not?
No. You don't want someone else in your house. You want enough. Exactly. You're with people all the time. You want people at your house. So, you know, some people get it brought in, but that's more of a modern thing now. You can get these services that just show up, drop the food off, it's hot, you eat it, then they piss off. Which is really good. Really, believe me, right. For the most part, I didn't do that. I ate 2 broiled chicken breasts, wilted spinach, brown rice for 13 years for lunch. That way, that's what lunch is. That way, I had 4% body fat while I played. That way, I stayed exactly the shape I needed to be in. And it was just that discipline. Because I knew I couldn't. If I started to go into variety, then the food I would eat would be not as good, then I'd have 5% body fat, and then I get my ass kicked.
Looking back.
The sacrifice is always feels worth it if at the end you get to where you really want to go. But if you don't, then you look back and you think of 3 years here or 4 years in America where essentially you did none of the fun stuff that everybody else has to do. How much is it worth it? You know? And you know, most of you aren't, I assume, aspiring to be WNBA or NBA players. You're aspiring to do well here, or maybe go to Europe. In which case, maybe you can have a big thing to do. Maybe you can do some fun, have some nights out, whatever. I think we can. You just have to be judicious about it. But that's when you can't pretend about the time that's actually available. That's when you have to just be honest and say, you know what? If I got up half an hour earlier, I could do all the things that I need to do before I get to practice. You know, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know what time this gym actually opens in the morning. Does anybody know? 7? I'm pretty sure on a college campus at 7 o'clock this place isn't buzzing with activity. Well, it's great. So while they're doing that, if it's the big machine that rolls up and down, the whole place is not being covered by that. It's not a Zamboni, right? If it's somebody with a cloth, whatever it is, you know what we call those things, the kind of scissor-shaped mops, then they're not on every court at the same time, right? So but it's not too hard if they're starting over there to do your stuff, and then they zoom past, and then they zoom past, and then they're done. Then they're on their way. It's like, no? What, they don't let you do it? Then that's a conversation you need to have with your student union, sure. That's what they're there for, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Because if they're complaining about that, there's no compelling health and safety reason. They just don't want you in there, which is fair enough. But if they want your team to be promoted next year, then they need to get the hell out of the way. Because I'm pretty sure that you get more kudos from being up one division in box than you do from having a pristine floor.
Do you reckon as a nation we'll ever be anywhere near as good as Europe?
With the status quo as it is, we could be.
Anywhere near as good as Europe?
With the status quo as it is, we could be talented. I mean, physically. I mean, look at yourselves. We're physically as talented as any other nation. We're genetically identical to France in terms of our Norman slash African imperial bits of blood that we've got. We're identical. We could be just as good as France in as quickly as 6 or 7 years, but not if we keep doing the same stuff wrong. Not if we keep cutting corners. The standard of coaching is incredibly poor. Most coaches think they know everything. I certainly don't. But I'm surprised by the number who do. Basketball is made up of lots of little cottage industries, and this is different. I'm not really talking about you guys here because we were discussing this earlier. It's different with universities. I know there's competition, there's scholarships, all that kind of stuff, but it's not the same as in the National League where people are, they carve out a piece of turf and they protect it. And if a kid dares to leave, then they never talk to them again, and they blackmark their parents and all kinds of nonsense. That has to stop. We need to just recognize we need to share best practice, and that doesn't happen very often.
We live in a number of American players, particularly in the BBL.
The BBL is almost, it's so absurd as to be ridiculously irrelevant. It's the worst basketball I've ever seen. No, it should be gone. It should be gone. There is something worse than having a Premier League, and that is having a terrible Premier League that allows people to think that real basketball is gymnastics, that is somehow dependent on how, your style gives you extra points, which is what BBL is. It's like the NBA D-League, but like 1,000 times worse. And yes, should we restrict Americans? Absolutely. Especially when they're terrible Americans. In the 80s, you had 2 Americans, and they were outstanding. They were, sometimes guys who played in France and Germany and Greece especially, and were just finishing out the rest of their career before doing something else. But they were outstanding, 2 outstanding players who knew how to run a team, whereas now we just get kids who they come to this country because they couldn't play anywhere else.
A lot of guys go to the gym and obviously are very good, but they struggle to do a lot of your exercises.
Yes.
Just wondering why that was.
Because the body that enables you to go to the beach and look amazing is not the same as the body that enables you to kick someone's ass on a basketball court. It's just not the same. And whilst there are guys that we see in the league who just look amazing, the truth is that they spend as much time doing static exercises, and the power exercises for lifting, like the clean and jerk stuff, which they do under strict supervision because it can have impacts, but they do as much body weight exercise as you ever see. Like the 2 things you see from players nowadays, and even when I was playing, yoga became new, and the static body exercises, static strength. The things like the ones that require core stability, the ones that you can do using the, how do they call those big blue balls? Thank you, those things. So it's all about having your body tie into each other. So instead of it just being my shoulders, my front of my shoulders and my biceps don't tire enough that I can lift this tremendous weight 10 times. Rather than that, it's how do you tie all your shoulder build into your abs, into your obliques, into all of you, so that when you do need to hold a position, you can do it with ease. And that's what it's about. And that's why I think it's just so much more functional to do that. The weightlifting is important, don't get me wrong. And if you want to look, cut at the beach, then maybe that's also an important thing for you. But the truth is that on a basketball court, it's not about looking good, it's about can you hold these positions for 40 minutes? Or at the end of the game, when the defender comes over your shoulder, will you suddenly lose this? They get their fingertips on it, it's out of bounds, it's their ball. I have nothing against lifting. I mean, I do now, but I have nothing against lifting as a thing. I think it's important, but it's part of the picture. And it needs to be done in a way that's getting you functionally stronger for your game, the game that you want to play.
Who was your favourite player growing up?
I mean, of course I'm going to say anything different, but I started in '94. In '94, my first game against the Chicago Bulls were Pippen, and Jordan, and it was that era. There were so many great teams. Malone and Stockton were kind of right there at the very beginning of their career. Early on in their career, there's so many great players. I just missed Larry Bird by 1 year. That was just Magic Johnson still playing. It's huge. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nowadays we've got some great individuals, but we've only really got like a couple of great teams. Yeah.
What do you make of this whole superstar trio? So like the Richards, like Boston, what's going on?
I mean, it's buying what.
It seems to be more prominent now as been past. I mean, when I first started watching, sort of 10, 15 people, it was all sort of, you had a star, so everyone else been around that now, so everyone's jumping to the degree.
Well, that's what it is. Everybody wants to win a ring. So if you can put together a superstar crew and get that ring in a year, rather than building a team. I think it's detrimental to people who watch the game. I think it gives you the wrong idea about how you build a team. You don't build it by looking around and you guys saying, I don't know who your rivals are in terms of chess. Who your rivals? In terms of the box. So, is it about saying to someone from MMU, hey, come to Chester, our course in such and such is just as good as yours, and you come here and then we'll win, we'll go up. And it's just like, it's the wrong idea. To me, I'm old-fashioned, I just think it's the wrong way to go about winning. It's much more satisfying to build it and then reap the rewards than to kind of buy it. It's more sustainable, isn't it? I can't see it changing in the league. I think that's the people are going to keep moving. So LeBron's contract up in a year's time, and I would not be surprised. Someone will.
Who was your favorite player?
Carmelo and Larry Bird, those two. I like Carmelo because of his work ethic, and I like Larry Bird because I always thought that he was the guy in the league with even less physical talent than I did, and yet he was still amazing. And I just thought, I watched how he did that. How can someone who can't jump, can't run, isn't fast, isn't quick, and yet beats everybody? How is that possible? It's what's amazing. Been quite big. I've been lucky. I've played for a couple of good ones. I've played for some really terrible ones, but I've played for a couple of good ones. I think Doc Rivers is a great coach. I played for JBG, Jeff Van Gundy, who's hilarious and super intense. Like every time you look at him, he's like, you know the tiny dog that gets into a battle with like a pit bull? He's that all the time. He's one of those people where you look at him and his face gets all flushed and his heart, you can tell his heart's beating at like 1,000 miles an hour. You think he's going to die every day, but he's so intense. And he's also the smartest basketball mind I've ever met. I've still got my, played for him in Houston, and I've still got the playbooks from Houston. And I showed up and I had an individual meeting with him because I had just been traded to them. And I showed up and he sat in the room, there's this folder on the table, and he opens the folder and it says John Amaechi, it says what I do well and what I don't do well, and then after that, it's got, I think, 300 pages of plays labeled with the little tabs, and he's like, this is our playbook for the season. He doesn't have to look at it, he just knows. You call out a number and a color, and it's the play, and you just have to know it. It's awesome. Technically brilliant. He used to stop practice. If we passed the ball, if we were running up in a line doing the two-man passing, and somebody passed the ball behind, he'd stop the drill, right back to the beginning, start again. Got 4 minutes on this drill, stop, back to the beginning, another 4 minutes. So now you know where I get that from. He's brilliant.
How does training work when you're getting it? I mean, we play 2 games a season, lots of travel. You must have to balance how much training during the season.
You do, but that's because you get into super good shape during the preseason, pre-season, and then pre-season comes along and you've got 6 games. 6 games, yeah? 6 games. You've got 6 games to work out some kinks and playing kinks, and also to kind of get used to that intensity on the floor. But then practice is still 2 hours. In the first 25 games, practice is still 2 hours on the days that you practice. So if you have 4 games in a week, you'll practice 2 of those, 2 of the other days at least, and it'll be a good 2 hours, with some conditioning elements at the end of it for the first 25 games. After the first 25 games, most coaches make the conditioning element on you. So you come and you do what you need to do, based on the amount of minutes you're playing, how old you are. Rookies don't get that leeway, but everyone else gets that leeway. But the leeway is only, so if I don't bother doing anything else, and I'm playing 20 minutes a game, and I do no additional, I'll get out of shape, or at least get out of game shape. And then when that happens, I just won't play. And then I'll get docked pay, and that's how they tell me, you know. And don't forget, you are weighed every single day. You weighed in, you weighed out. So my practice, I would get to the gym at 9 o'clock. I would get changed, stretch, get on a bike, do a bike circuit. Most of them are programmed bikes, you can program in a thing. I pick up my program thing, stick it in the bike, do my program, it's a 45-minute bike. Get off the bike, stretch. There's usually somebody there to do some stretching with you. If it's 1 or 2 days a week, I do my lifting. So I do my lifting, and then practice would start at 10 o'clock. You go 10 to 12. Practice finishes, you do your stretching as a team. You go to the trainer. There's a bank of 12 ice baths, and everybody gets in an ice bath. And you sit there for 15, 20 minutes, and then you get out of the ice bath and you shower and go home. And then if you're a rookie, you come back in the afternoon again, and you'll have another hour of skill set. Or another hour going through the plays if you're not picking them up fast enough. It's it's incredibly boring. It is, it's incredibly. It's not the fun bit, that's for sure.
You spend much time with strength and conditioning?
Pre-season, yeah. But everybody has a different way. So I showed up with my team a week before the pre-preseason starts. So the bit where the team's together, there's no game, it's just us working out. And the coaches, not me anymore. I showed up a week before then in shift. So I have a trainer in Arizona, and I worked out with him, worked with a bunch of us. There was me, Richard Jefferson, and Mike Dippy, and a bunch of other guys who were 12, 14 others. And we'd work out together, outside in Arizona, in 100-degree weather in the morning, on the grass, doing SAQ stuff, doing some sprint series, lifting in the afternoon. He was really big on pool workouts, so we did a lot of stuff in the pool. So that's, and then playing, obviously, he drills and then playing. So that's, I just got in shape, and then we did whatever we did with the team. It wouldn't make any difference to me because I'd already been in shape. It would just be,
You work around with you, games and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, the whole team comes everywhere. So a doctor, at least one of the doctors, your managers, at least 3 of those, at least 2 of the trainers, unless there's somebody significant. If a big name is injured, then your head trainer will stay at home. But otherwise, everybody goes with it. The only time you're missing a coach is if they're scouting and then they need them.
Your training schedule sounded like you could get quite repetitive with masters. How do you keep yourself mentally strong?
The thing is, it's just your job. There's an element where someone is paying you an absurd amount of money to be bored. It's just not that hard. I'm riding on a bike, and in the time I finish riding on this bike, I've made more than my sister makes. She's got a real job that matters. I've got to be a real dick if I can't motivate myself for 45 minutes of a bike ride. It's really, I think it's a tough one for me because I like nice cars and stuff, but when I was in league, I was reasonably sensible and didn't have absurd cars. But I would drive into a car park every day, underground in the arena, and you park next to this line of cars that you just can't even possibly imagine. And so when somebody says, yeah, you know what, it's really boring and mundane, and then it's like, but look at that. And then you go over to people's houses and you just realize that we have so much. Gated communities with, you know, one of the players I played with had no relatives, no partner, well, no regular partner anyway, and had a house with 13 bedrooms. It's just like 45 minutes worth of bike riding, 13 bedrooms. That's the thing, you know, even though, like I say, I ate the same lunch for 13 years. It's like, people are like, wow, that's amazing. You know, 2 cars, big house. Never traveled in coach. Never will. Big shoes. What type of shoes? Do you mean like smoking house shoes or basketball shoes? Oh, I've still got it. I mean, I don't know where these came from, but I've still got a ton of them. I've got a storage, I've got 3 storage boxes in the States that are just full of shoes. It's my nephews are getting there, so I'm assuming at least one of them's going to have massive feet, so it's going to be his inheritance, my shoes. Mostly I'm worn out. You burn through a pair of shoes every 6 weeks, easily. They're dead after. Really after 4, you've got to think about it, and after 6.
He just loves his shit.
Yeah, he's a different sort. I mean, talk about someone. I mean, if you want to follow somebody who just does the right stuff, he's a good man to pick.
Do you think the trend towards like small is a bit like concerning because there's not as many things?
Do you mean in this country or in general?
In general.
I don't know if there is a trend towards small ball. I mean, in general. I think if you go to the States, if you look at college and high school, that small ball thing is not there. I think if you come here, absolutely. But it's, no? Yeah. And it's not just because I'm big that I think this, but I just think it's absurd to me that you wouldn't recognize the value of having somebody who really, because a big is about can you operate down here. It's not that it's all you can do, but can you operate down here? And having somebody who really can operate down here, it changes the game. Entirely, I explained it to picks and whatever else, it changes the game. But also, the moment someone can score here, this person here, instead of being way out here, guarding that corner shot, is now over a little bit. This person, instead of being where they should be, is one more step down. It just changes the game. You were saying?
I was going to say, do you think that's going to continue to limit like the GB squad? Or it's just in general, the standard in this country?
I mean, yes, it's not the entire problem, but yeah, I mean, our GB squad, the most in shape guy on our GB squad during the Olympics was who? Bingo. The 40-year-old on our squad was the most in shape guy. None of them were out of shape, but they weren't in like an Olympic shape. You know, that's what limits us. Yeah. He's dedicated. I like what he does. I mean, people think I hate everything he plays in the league. I don't. I like what he does. He works hard. He's a great example. But the problem we have is that we think that somehow we have this Messiah thing where we can float somebody in with a new passport and change the direction of British basketball. And I think it starts with 13-year-olds. Proper coaching. Don't cut corners. Handle the basics. Work on the mic and drill the short. That's what does it. You know, three-man drills working on simple movement and motion. That's what.
But again, is some of that down to like just coaching and the fact that a lot of coaches tend to kind of go towards just shooting and passing dribbling as like their main go-tos instead of like sort of post work and just moving with post active.
I think there's a hell of a lot of coaches who don't know enough about every position. I think I'm very fortunate in that I play with such great point guards that bits of their excellence just kind of drops off. But otherwise, I would have no clue we're supposed to do from a white ball perspective. And I think a lot of coaches don't have that breadth. But a lot of times it's just easier to win. In this country, it's just easier to win if you play 55, full court man-to-man, against a team with a bad point guard, and you'll win without actually having to do any real basketball stuff. It's just running around and jumping. Putting people under pressure. The problem is you play against a good team, they burn your press, and then you're 5-on-4 or worse. It's a shame because we can be so good. I mean, this is the bit that always gets edited out of what I say. We could be so good. I mean, imagine, think about you guys, right? You haven't, this is the interesting part for you guys, you have a choice now. You have a choice. Every time you come into practice, you have a choice. You can start out there at the 3-point line, hoisting up stuff, or even as I saw on the far court down there, go to half court and just hoist that thing up. And chill out. And then eventually the coach will blow the whistle and it'll be time to start. And you might do some running around as part of your warm-up, and you've got a choice on the corners, you've got a choice at the lines, you've got a choice when you do your dynamic stretch to do it properly or not. You've got a choice whether to do your sprint training and really work on that. You've got a choice whether to do micro the way that you know you can get away with it, or whether to do it the way that you should do it. These are all your choices. And this, and it's not on you, but as a country, this is the difference between being where we are, shit, and where France is. That's it. Because we are as talented as they are. Physically, genetically as talented.
So to coaching practices, do you think we should have like sort of more conferences where people can come together?
I mean, ideally, who cares? But everybody knows everything here. They know everything. Listen, I don't claim to be the best, right? I never claimed to be the best NBA player, whatever. I was pretty damn good, right? In the scheme of things. I don't know anything about football, but give me the name of a Premiership football player from, I don't know, the Liverpool, Wirral area, maybe, I don't know anybody. They're not like a superstar, they're not like Michael Owen, right? So they're not like him, I don't know, is he a thing? I don't know. Right? So it's not like that, but it's like, he's good, he's solid, he played 10 years. There you go.
Jamie Carragher
If Jamie Carragher said, I don't know who he is, but I'm assuming that you're right. If he said, and he's not the most, I just want to make sure he's not like awesome, but he's good, he's solid, right? So if he said to the football community, where's he from? Oh, Liverpool. He said to the football community in Merseyside, I'm going to do like some free coaching. Just, just let me know if you want to do it. Maybe you've got to make a video. Does anybody, I mean, how many people do you think would respond to that? How many close? So again, this is not me, I don't know if I'm hoping he's like not brilliant. I'm trying to suggest that I'm not brilliant, right? But when I get that, do you know how many responses I get? Yeah. I wish it was 13. It's only 10 if you include 2 young people who sent videos just as individuals because their club wouldn't do it. Who just sent videos individually saying, my name's this, I'm from Plymouth, my club won't do anything, but I was hoping you could come and coach me. Other than that, it's 8. And you are the last of them. This is the last of them for this year, maybe ever, who knows. This is why, again, it's not because of that. I know I'm a divisive character in basketball, right? Some people hate me, and I just don't give a shit, right? But I've got no iron in the fire. I gain nothing. If you guys all get brilliant, what will not happen is me then suddenly going on the internet saying, yeah, you know, the only reason Chester got promoted, yeah, I went down there and I was just awesome. That's not going to happen, right? If you guys get to play professionally, I will not call you up saying, where's my 5%? I have no money in this game at all. But somehow, there are people out there who just think, you know what, I know better. One of my own coaches from my own club told me as I tried to explain something about basketball to them, they said, well, John, in fairness, you've been out of the game for a while. And that was in a building with my name on it. So I think that's why the money's good. And it's not because they don't listen to me, but because I think that's the attitude. It's like, I know. I bought the Coach K DVDs. I know. I've had and again, just want to point out, I had a coach tell me. I said, what you're doing here with this is incorrect. And he said, look, John, I bought the Coach K DVDs. He's the best coach in America. I know.
Doesn't that then go back to, like the MDB and like the coaching courses that they're putting on to like make it better and to understand more?
I think, I mean, you are also correct. And yes, I do, yes. It is Basketball England's job, it's GB Basketball's job. But, I mean, look, have you seen GB Basketball's coaching document? The 160 pages of July. We don't need that. We need people, I mean, we need more organised than perhaps how my brain was today for you guys. So we need to just like take half a day and we'll do defence in the quarter court here. We'll just use half a day on that. And then do half a day on just shooting fundamentals, or half a day on practice planning, half a day on development this, that. But that's what it takes. But we all know everything. Why would I show up at that? We all know everything. And again, not about me doing it, whoever does it. And there are some great coaches out there. You know, there's some good coaches out there. There's a handful of quality coaches out there. In Britain. And then there's a shitload of detritus. And I think we need to contract before we get better. We need to demand more from the coaches. And if they aren't willing to go through CPD, if they aren't willing to meet the standards, and I don't mean level 1, 2, and 3, I mean real standards. They should be gone. Not for me. I am the red-headed stepchild of basketball, so it's not going to come from me. Somebody else is going to have to do it. I'm tired of being the jerk all the time. So, yeah, that's somebody else's job. I don't know what to, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. 5 years ago, I would have said, me, I'll do it. Now,
it's part of the fact that they keep getting lifelines from like UK sports, and they say they're going to cut funding, and they're like, well, we'll give you a little bit if you do this, and it's all conditional, and then they don't succeed.
But it's not conditional on them actually changing it.
Yeah.
So that money goes into the same terrible stuff. So right now we've got £1 million odd quid going into the BBL Foundation to deliver one-off coaching once. 1 hour a week of coaching that is very specifically not elite. So it's just about come in and have fun for an hour. And that's fine, except that just doesn't work. It's not worked in any other sport. It's not worked in any other sport that wins.
It's hard to get
people to games. And it does get people to games. Well, you said that.
But it's part of the fact that they have to basically match it in how much they get through sponsorship.
What, you honestly think there's £1 million of sponsorship?
The BBL.
I mean, partly is, if it comes from sporting, then there's a way they have to spend it, and it can't be elite. But the truth is that basketball needs to spend money in different ways now than it used to, and it just refuses. So we're going to make the same mistakes again, and we're going to roll around. And, I mean, who here thinks we've got a team? We know we don't have a team for Rio, right? Who here thinks, from looking around the country, that we have a team for Japan?
There's quite a few good young lads in America. There's quite a few that are in their own colleges.
Name.
Luke Nelson.
Name another.
Alex Young.
Who?
Alex Young. He's actually sort of American, to be honest,
Okay.
but he's Luke Nelson's backup, mate.
Alex Young is very American. He's good.
The GB under-20s are quite solid, aren't they?
Okay. Don't know. My suggestion to you is Japan's, what are we in now? I think, what are we in? 14, 15. 2016 is Rio. What is it? 2016 is Rio. Then you've got 2020 is Japan. I say that we can create from scratch from an athlete who's never touched the ball, it requires 6 years to get them to the standard of a world-class international. I say that because, I mean, obviously now I look like shit, but you can kind of extrapolate like minus 40 pounds off this and still realize that I never looked like that dude. I never looked like you guys. I never looked cut. I just wasn't. But I picked up a basketball at age 17, and exactly 6 years later, I was walking on the court with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, Cleveland Cavaliers were terrible, but I was still walking on the court with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, if I can do that, all it takes is walking through major cities, major urban areas. Even if we forget, like, we'll assume Chester doesn't even matter, it won't even go there. Just major cities with more than 1 million people in their conurbations, and we can automatically pick up a team. Right there and there. And in 6 years' time, that is in enough time. I mean, think about that. That's exactly enough time for Japan from now. Yeah, we can do that. But we're not going to do it by trying to find some way of like, we've got these kids over there, then they'll come back here, because why would you come back? Why would you come back? What? To sleep in beds that are too small and to get £8 a day in stipend, and why would you come back? I mean, and if they do, that's not the way we're going to get better, by hoping that our failed system won't matter because we can send people away and then they'll come back to us when we need it. Instead of building up a system where here we have great ways for people who've got families, who want to do a doctorate, who want to study in this country and not in America, can stay here, play at a high level, learn the very best, and still be a part of a national, international team.
So you said at universities?
Potentially. If they did it, if they were serious about it.
Because the way I look at it, you have to decide if you want to really go for when you're around, well, 16, 17, to then look to move abroad. I think staying in the UK is basically giving up on any hope of it.
Wow. You're a real sunshine. No, you are right. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying you're a real sunshine.
Because would you compare you and Danny Craven in that? You and Danny Craven as a comparison is you went away and Danny Craven stayed in the UK, and he's probably better athletic than you, no offence to you, but he was an athlete.
I used to look at Danny and just be like, oh, if only. Athletic-wise? Kidding me? No,
Crazy.
Not close. Not even close. Of course not. That's the thing, though. That's the point I'm trying to make. For everyone, all of you are better athletes. That's fine, but that's the point. Effort is something we can control. We can control the effort part. The truth is that I came in the gym and did boring shit, while other people launched the ball from half court. I was in here doing that boring thing with both hands. And then, and I should also add this, right? So, just in case you don't believe me about the 6 years, yes, age 17, all I knew about when I was 17 was Greg's and library. I love books and pie, that was it, right? That was my thing. At age 17, picked up a ball, I was in the league and playing for Cleveland 6 years later. But in between that time, I chopped my hand off. I actually chopped my hand off. So and had an operation that gave me some artificial tendons, right? Which are these piston things you can see in here, right? Think about that. How crazy is that? With 6 years, you better believe it. 6 years, right? Including a life-threatening injury. And I still get to the league, and it's just the difference between choices that we make. That's the whole point of that feed video, in case you haven't seen it lately. So if I can do it, terrible athletes coming from terrible habits of Greg's, and all of a sudden I can turn things around in 6 years with the right system. We can do amazing things. Amazing things. This country could be kicking France's arse in 7 years' time.
How have we still managed to get scholarships into different places like in Europe and America? We are the children.
Because they're not looking at British people, they're looking at, can I teach this lanky kid play? Because talent is talent is talent. Because if you're physically talented, why not? And if you're American, you're saying, I can take a physically talented kid from England who already speaks English, who's already familiar with English-speaking stuff and the American way of life, rather than taking this kid from sub-Saharan Africa, who whilst might have other qualities, doesn't speak English, so has to learn, comes from an entirely different culture, so we have to acculturate that person more readily. There's so many reasons why taking an English kid is better. Our education system, as much as it's maligned, is by far more respected than almost any other in Europe. You know, the only qualification people respect more than an A-level is probably the bac, the French baccalaureate. But outside of that, no one else. So there's so many great reasons to pick a Brit, especially when you're thinking of America. It's not, they don't come here because we're great. They come here because we have some 6'9" guys. They come here because we have some tiny guys who've got great feet, good basketball minds, but usually are kind of, after 4 or 5 years, are just average.
And would you say partly they come here because we're bad? Because if they go to Spain, if I'm Pau Gasol, I can develop in Spain and then go to America straight to the NBA. Because we're bad and there isn't a pathway, a college can come in. It might not be a top college, but one of our top players would want to go there.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think it's accurate that there are players that they can get, there are very talented players that they can get from England who would not go from Spain because they could stay within a system that could take them as far without them having to learn a new language or a new system. Yeah, that's a good point. And you spent that. Done? It smells like links. I tried to open a centre in London about 4 years ago. The teams in London, all of them, went to the central London basketball. No, England basketball has a London basketball group, and they went to them and played. Said that I was going to take their players away from them. The group from the south of London said, you better not build it here. The group from the north of London said, you better go to the south of London. I mean, to put it in perspective, France is a much bigger country than ours, but they have, I explained this to the coach, they have 32 centres. 32 academies where the coaches are all standardised, they all teach the same thing. They're all performance managed, some of them have specialties in bigs and some of them in other positions, but Spain has 38, including 4 that are in Africa. So that's what it takes if you want to get good, I think. But we're not going to do it. Partly because we can't get funding now because we've wasted too much money beforehand, and partly because if somebody builds a centre somewhere, there's a scrum of coaches saying, I've been coaching for 25 years, I should coach this. I should be the head coach. No, I've been coaching for 35 years, I should be the head coach. How about the best coach we have today?
Do you think there's anything that, like, as outsiders to the sort of NGB, we can do anything about it? Or do you think it's something that's going to have to be sort of internally resolved?
I don't think we'll ever do it. I am going to, I mean, I haven't decided if I'm doing this type of thing again next year, but this is in a nice basketball analogy for you. Where I am with British basketball, despite the fact that I desperately want to see young people have opportunity, I just feel like where I am is the crowd has been booing at me for about 8 years, and I'm on the sideline, and I'm waiting for the next coach, and I'm just going like this, boom, and I'm on. That's where I am in the basketball. It's just, we don't learn. You don't know. And on that, Rosie, again, I would tell you, just stick in your head the idea, in 6 years, we could be as good as friends as a country. But it's about, and to take this back to you guys, now you have choices. Every day you come in the gym now, you know what the good stuff is to do. And you know what the fun stuff is to do. And if you're lucky, some of that will cross over. But the good stuff will never start out there. It'll start here. The good stuff will never start with cutting a corner. The good stuff will never be starting on the line and wandering to the end. It's never part of that. So bring it in and do that Chester thing. Kind of good, so I can lie down and die. Let's bring it up here. There we go. Thanks. No, it's all you. It's all you.
Chester on 3. 1, 2, 3, Chester!